Hi everyone, I'm here at the John Hay Library where H.P. Lovecraft spent a lot of his time here on the Brown University campus. Gorgeous old building. Found among the papers of the late Francis Wayland Thurston of Boston. Of such great powers or beings, there may be conceivably a survival. A survival of a hugely remote period when consciousness was manifested, perhaps in shapes and forms long since withdrawn before the tide of advancing humanity. Forms of which poetry and legend alone have caught a flying memory and called them gods, monsters, mythical beings of all sorts and kinds. Hi, I'm currently here at 10 Barnes Street in Providence, Rhode Island, and this is the home where H.P. Lovecraft wrote Call of Cthulhu and Shadow over Innsmouth. The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind.
The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all this content.
In the midst of black seas.
We live on a placid island.
And it was not meant that we should
in the midst of
far.
black seas of infinity. And it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining in their own direction, have hitherto harmed us little. But someday, the piecing together of disassociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality and of our frightful position therein that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age.
I always think about myself on like a Kurt Cobain tour or a Sid Barrett tour and thinking that, I would just ask the people in the house to let me in.
Yeah,
but I know at the moment when you're there, it's different.
Yeah, and the time frame was so little. So what I plan on actually doing is next time we go back, because we have planned that we are going to go back, because we want to go back to Mystic and explore Mystic a little bit more. And we want to explore Providence a little bit more because Brooke and I think, have decided that when we retire, that we're going to either move to Providence or Mystic. And
so you do feel the call of Cthulhu. Quite literally.
Do. I have felt the call of Cthulhu.
Just the little brief my thoughts and feelings about Lovecraft, the limited amount that I know about and enjoy,
sure.
And then. You're the expert. You've read the stuff and but I am a fan. But my exposure to it has been a little bit. I remember one of the students at our high school, Martin Luther, reading Lovecraft all the time and complaining that Edgar Allan Poe had been given all of this studyship and things in that Lovecraft, whose language is just as flowery. I mean, you've demonstrated that, and very, very eloquent. It has not been given that kind of.
Not until recent, yeah.
Right. But my exposure to him has been in Stuart Gordon's movies, which I adore, Reanimator, From Beyond, and lesser extent Dagon. But from what I understand, those movies are almost nothing like what he writes, because those stories that those are based on are like a page or two long. And
well, some of them, yeah. Some of them. I have a copy of his works here in front of me. And I just, since you mentioned...
Is this the copy that you were reading from? You're reading from...
No, I was reading right from a PDF, yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, Dagon is about 5 pages long. And that movie was actually called Dagon, but it is based on Shadow over Innsmouth.
Shadow over Innsmouth is about 50 or so pages. Reanimator.
Shadow over Innsmouth was the one that Del Toro wanted to make, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, and
he was trying to get it.
Love it if he did.
He was trying to get an R-rated movie made out of it, and the studio wouldn't let him do it R-rated at the budget level he wanted to do it at.
Yeah, it's a shame. Well, I'll move on to that in a minute. Okay, Reanimator is about almost 30 pages, about 25 pages.
But Reanimator is a series of short stories, right? It's not just one.
It's called Herbert West Reanimator, and it was published in a serial. Yes,
okay,
it was published as a serial in a magazine.
Oh, but then published finally as one story.
So it had to be changed slightly. And well, actually, when you're reading, you'll notice that when you move on to separate chapters, which were different parts of the serial, that he recaps a lot. You're wondering, well, we already know this. Why is he telling us all this again? But when you find out that it was a serial, it makes more sense.
Right.
Let's see. What was the other one you mentioned?
From Beyond, which is my personal favorite. Has this very, very good, perfect comedy level and horror level, and just pitch perfect performances by Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton and Ken Foree.
Yeah. Oh no, it was At the Mountains of Madness that Del Toro wanted to make.
Oh, okay, right. That makes sense, right?
Okay, so I don't have a copy of From Beyond in here, but that's about a 25-page story.
But that one seems to me, from my limited knowledge, to be the one that's closest to what Lovecraft was about, if you've seen From Beyond. Because it deals with the resonator and this monsters coming from another dimension, kind of. And
it was highly expanded on because it was a very short story.
Right. Well, the Barbara Crampton character was added, right, for the movie.
Oh yeah,
she became the lead.
Added, yeah.
Okay. A
lot of it was added. Basically, the story is very short. It's basically about this guy who had a friend who was a professor and a doctor, and he wanted to be a reanimator, basically, and how he is called to his house. Or not a reanimator. I'm sorry.
An animator, like for Warner Brothers,
for Pixar.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm sorry. I was mixing that up with Reanimator. But no, it was about this professor who was studying the different vestigial glands in the human body and what they could actually read, and so he was working on this machine. Well, he basically kicked this guy out of his life. And then suddenly calls him back in, and he's like, I know what this has to do with. Well, he gets there, and this guy is totally transformed. Now, in the
Dr. Pretorius, is that the name in the story as well?
No, it wasn't Dr. Pretorius in the actual story, but
okay.
He goes to meet him, and in the book he talks about a horrible transformation or disfiguring, but it was more of an emotional reflection, a manifestation physically of his emotional state, not like in the movie where he was actually
turned into a blob.
Yeah, right. And he explains to him that he's perfected this device, and the only contact that the protagonist has had with this professor in all this time has been through his manservant, who hasn't contacted him in a while, and he was kind of wondering what happened. Well, he gets to the house, there's no servants, he's worried. The guy takes him up to the machine and flips it on and basically shows him what ultraviolet looks like when the pineal gland is actually triggered, and also then he basically is able to show him all these different creatures that are just always around us and going through us and everything else, and he just goes blabbering on and on and on about how.
So the story's pretty faithful to the movie. I mean, the movie's pretty faithful to the story at that point.
Yeah, but highly expanded.
Right.
Yeah. So most of the stories aren't like one pagers. Like Dagon's a one pager, but Shadow over Innsmouth is a pretty significant story. But if they could. Here's the reason that you don't see a lot of adaptations of Lovecraft stories. Many of the Lovecraft stories are told from a narrator standpoint. Okay, they're a kind of a retro recollection of the main character, of what happened to him.
Is it a trustworthy narrator or like a Fight Club train spotting narrator?
No, it's a trustworthy. I mean, so that again takes you into what type of reader are you going to be? Are you going to read this from the viewpoint of believing that the old ones exist and understanding that these people are telling the truth and that no one else gets them? Or are you going to approach the story like one of the investigators who doesn't believe any of this is going on, and allow yourself to begin to believe of what these stories are about as you read them? And it's more fun to try to put yourself into the story from that angle. And if you're able to do that, the story
as an investigator,
it takes on a whole different meaning and feeling. Because if you just read it as a horror story and you say you're getting into this whole it was so horrifying that it drove the guy insane, you're just like, okay, well, in today's day and age, we're watching people get ripped apart in just about every show we watch. There's violence, gore,
Walking Dead.
Walking Dead. And you say, how could anybody have gone insane from this stuff? So a lot of people discount Lovecraft because of that. But if you take the stance where you are drawn into the story from the investigator angle, you allow yourself to become a believer as the story goes on. And if you do that, it allows you to feel the horror that these people would have felt being shown this. Okay, this is where you have to be in your head to enjoy Lovecraft. And that is that of such great powers or beings, there may be conceivably a survival.
Yeah, I know the quote because I've edited. Yeah.
Specifically talking about how we live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity. It was not meant that we should voyage far, and that all the sciences are kind of doing their own thing, but they all correlate and they all point to this cosmic, bigness that could affect us dramatically, because we're just spawns of all that. And if we're able to piece all this together and really understand where we sit, we would go nuts. So, and if you approach it from that,
so he seems like the anti-Paulo Coelho to me a little
right?
Bit.
Yeah, but okay. So again, the reason that the Lovecraft story,
I should say that Coelho's my favorite author. I just want to put that out there. So.
Yeah, and one of mine as well. Haunter of the Dark probably is Haunter of the Dark. I'd have to say is one of my top 3 favorite stories, and Haunter of the Dark is the reason that I went to Providence. Okay, so I'm currently approaching 65 Prospect Street, which was the final home of H.P. Lovecraft, where he wrote The Haunter of the Dark. And there it is. 65 Prospect. So Haunter of the Dark is the story of a guy who lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Yes. Here, I'm gonna find it. I'll get little bits and pieces of it here. I have seen the dark universe yawning, where the black planets roll without aim, where they roll in their horror unheeded, without knowledge or luster or name. And that's written by Nemesis. Okay, so Robert Blake, who is the subject of several stories, is killed by lightning through an unbroken window. But that's what everyone thinks. He moved from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to Federal Hill in Providence. And while there, he was there to write. Well, while there, he lived on College Hill, which is about 2 miles from Federal Hill.
And that's the house that you visited.
Well, okay, the house doesn't actually exist anymore, if it ever did. The John Hay Library, right behind that is College Street, and the house that he's speaking of was on College Street behind the John Hay. And at the time, because the buildings, the way the city was built, you could see directly into Federal Hill. And he took note of all of the building tops at night, and through his glasses would look through and see all these, beautiful buildings. And one that he took note of was this old church steeple. Mm-hmm. And he took note of how the birds would fly around to avoid it, and how they would perch on all the other building tops and steeples and things like that, but they would avoid this one house. Many of the places that are in the book are real places in Providence. So I wanted to go there, get up on College Hill and peer into Federal Hill and see if I could see a steeple, and that would remind me of it. And I did, and it was cool.
So it was specific because that story mentioned so many specific places that were correspond to reality. It gave a window into the process.
This is a Cthulhu fetish,
which you already have.
Yeah. This is based on the drawing that H.P. Lovecraft made of what he believed Cthulhu would look like.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Does it have any writing on it?
Yeah, but it's in some inconceivable language.
Oh.
It probably actually says,
Finglui Migwinoth Cthulhu Relay Waganatha Fatagan.
Which means
it means that Cthulhu's sleeping in his
make sure to fill the toilet paper roll.
Yes, yeah.
Change the toilet paper.
Yeah, before Cthulhu gets there.
Yes.
Or you're fucked. House in Relay, dead Cthulhu waits, dreaming. That's what it means.
Okay. That's cool.
I'm
not sure what that means, but it's cool.
It means that he's waiting. And
someday, the cult, when the stars are aligned right, the cult will find the power to awake Cthulhu, the great mystical priest, and he will awaken the other old ones, and they will
teach us how to enjoy ourselves with murder and blood. And they'll find new ways for us to enjoy ourselves with murder and blood.
And this is what called you to Rhode Island.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that call.
Meanwhile,
when it came, I was like, I am on my way. You don't have to ask me twice. I'm currently approaching the Providence Athenaeum. Many of H.P. Lovecraft's works and books and writings are being cared for here. And then I get up there and it's closed.
You do plan to have dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour, don't you? Sorry. Seeing where he was and
imagine where he sat when he wrote, or when he was with his parents.
So overall impressions, thoughts?
Well, Providence, Rhode Island is a beautiful, beautiful place. It has some of the oldest, most architecturally interesting buildings that I've ever seen. It holds a lot of feels. You go there, and when you're standing in front of places like the John Hay or like the houses that he wrote these stories in, it gives you this feeling of, almost like you're there. Like, you really, it's easy to sit and think. I mean, I could have sat in front of any of those buildings, from in front of the house looking out and just sat there thinking, what did Lovecraft look at when he was just sitting here thinking about his stories or writing his stories, or what did he do? What room was he in? Things like that. But it's just this going to places that he wrote about, that he actually named in the books, is so fulfilling because it's like, it's part of the story. It brings that story to life all the more, being able to stand in front of the place that was written about. And,
trying to get the views he did and see the things he saw that inspired him. And that's kind of what I'm after, when we go next time, is going there. We're also going to go to Boston, go to places that are mainly named in Shadow over Innsmouth, Newburyport, those kind of places. But yeah, overall impression was that I could retire there.